The world had changed in many ways, but for Jessica Connor, memories still carried the same weight they had carried years ago. She lived in a small apartment in Boston, tucked between a bakery and a bookstore, where the smell of warm bread drifted through her windows each morning. People often called her soft-spoken, gentle, someone who moved as if she were listening to music only she could hear. But they didn't know the truth behind that softness. They didn't know that she carried an ocean inside her. Every year, on April 14th, she left her apartment before dawn, crossed the sleeping city, and walked to the harbor. She sat on the bench overlooking the water, the cold wind brushing her cheeks like an old friend. And every year, she whispered the same name, Robinson. This year felt different, not heavier, not easier, simply different, like the ocean had more to say. She held in her hands a small silver necklace, a tiny charm shaped like a ship. It had been a gift, a promise, a memory, everything at once. And as the water rolled in its slow rhythm, Jessica knew she was finally ready to revisit the story she had been both living with and hiding from. The story of how she and Robinson had experienced their own Titanic, not in the icy Atlantic of 1912, but in a modern world where sinking didn't always happen in water, and saving someone didn't always mean surviving with them. Their story had been grand, painful, powerful, and like the ship itself, it had changed the course of many lives, especially hers. Jessica had met Robinson Hayes when she was 23. She had just moved to New York, filled with the fragile courage that young people carry when they chase a dream. She worked at a small tech company, shared a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, and often $8 pizza while sitting on a curb during lunch breaks. Life was simple, sometimes lonely, but manageable. Robinson entered her life on a rainy afternoon when the city streets were soaked and the sky seemed tired of holding itself together. Jessica had been rushing across the intersection when a car skidded on wet pavement and swerved. She froze. The car didn't hit her, because a hand had grabbed her just in time, firm, urgent, warm. When she looked up, breathless, she saw a man with rain in his hair, a worn leather jacket, and the most sincere brown eyes she had ever seen. "You okay?" he asked, breathing fast. She nodded, still stunned. "I think so. You should be careful," he said, though his voice was soft, not scolding. New York drivers forget that people exist. Despite the rain, he gave her a smile, gentle, a little crooked. "Robinson," he said, offering his hand. "Jessica." The city kept rushing around them, taxis honking, puddles splashing, conversations crossing like tangled threads. But in that tiny pocket of stillness, something unforgettable had bloomed. Robinson walked her to safety under a building awning and made sure she wasn't shaken. The conversation should have ended there, but he asked if she'd like a cup of coffee, something warm to erase the rain, and she agreed. That first coffee lasted 3 hours. When they parted, Jessica felt the strange ache of missing someone she had just met. Like the feeling of watching a great ship disappear into fog, knowing it carried something precious. They fell in love the way seasons changed, slowly at first, then all at once. Robinson was a filmmaker, working unpredictable hours and chasing stories the way some people chase the horizon. He had a restless heart, but it steadied around Jessica. She became his calm, his anchor, and he became her courage, her fire. They explored New York together. Rooftops, subway tunnels, abandoned warehouses where Robinson filmed documentaries, quiet bookstores where Jessica spent hours reading poetry. They invented rituals, ice cream on Fridays, movie marathons on rainy days, long walks at midnight when the city felt like a giant breathing creature. Robinson once told her, while watching her read, "You make spaces feel safe. Like I could fall apart and not break." Jessica looked up, surprised. "But you're the strong one." "No," he whispered, brushing her hair behind her ear. "You are. You just don't know it." It was the first time she truly understood that strength wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was soft, steady, patient. They held on to each other in a world that often moved too fast, too harshly. Their love felt old, like it belonged to another era. A love that could stand against storms. A love that felt unsinkable. But even the grandest ships have weak points. After 2 years together, Robinson received an offer from a major documentary network, a dream opportunity he had spent half his life pursuing. But the job required traveling across dangerous regions, places struggling with conflict and political instability. Jessica felt fear tightening around her heart, but she didn't want to chain him. "This is your dream," she told him softly. "It is," he admitted. "But I don't want to leave you. I'll be here," she said, even though the words tasted painful. He hugged her then, strong, desperate. "Promise me something," he whispered. "What?" "Don't let the distance sink us." She nodded, burying her face in his chest. "We're stronger than that. But love is not a steel hull. Distance can be an iceberg." Robinson left 3 weeks later. At first, they talked every day, video calls, texts, long messages filled with "I miss you" and "I love you." Jessica watched his documentaries air on television, proud yet aching. But as months passed, the calls became shorter. The messages came less often. Robinson was constantly on the move, sometimes unreachable for days. Jessica tried to stay strong, but loneliness gnawed at her spirit. She began to fear that love could drown quietly, not with dramatic sinking, but with slow, subtle flooding. One night, after nearly 9 months apart, Robinson finally called at 3 a.m. His voice was distant, tired. "Jess, I'm sorry. I know I haven't been present." She tried to sound gentle. "I just miss you. I know, and I feel like I'm failing you." Her breath caught. "You're not failing me, but I need you, even from afar." There was a long pause. "Jess, I think I'm losing myself here. I've seen things I can't forget. Pain, war, families torn apart, and I keep wondering, what am I doing chasing stories when people are drowning in tragedy?" Her heart ached. "You care. That's why your work matters." "I'm scared," he whispered. "I don't know if I'm strong enough anymore." "You don't have to be strong alone," she said. "Come home." Another long silence. Then his voice cracked. "I want to. God, I want to." But before they could say more, the call dropped. For hours, Jessica tried calling back, but the line never reconnected. The next morning, the news broke. A violent raid near the region where Robinson's crew was stationed. Several missing, some injured, 2 dead. Jessica felt the world tilt beneath her feet. It was her modern Titanic moment, the moment when calm waters shattered into chaos. For 2 weeks, she lived between dread and denial. Every hour stretched like a lifetime. She checked news updates, emailed agencies, called emergency lines. She barely slept. Her hands shook constantly. Then a call came. Robinson had been found. Alive. Injured, but alive. She cried so hard she couldn't speak. The relief was overwhelming, bright, burning, painful. Like being saved from drowning only to feel the sting of cold air. Robinson was flown back to the US for treatment. When Jessica finally saw him in the hospital, she didn't recognize him at first. He looked thinner, older, eyes heavy with things he would never fully share. But when he saw her, he whispered her name like a prayer. "Jessica." She ran into his arms. And in that embrace, fragile but powerful, her world found shape again. Recovery was slow. Robinson struggled with nightmares, flashes of trauma, moments of deep sorrow. Jessica stayed beside him, guiding him through the darkness. She cooked for him, read to him, held him during panic attacks. She whispered gentle truths when he felt unworthy of love. But healing is never simple. Some days were good, others cracked open without warning. Robinson often woke in the middle of the night, eyes filled with guilt. "Jess, I shouldn't have left. I shouldn't have put you through that. You came back," she said. "That's what matters." But he shook his head. "No, I came back broken." "You're not broken," she whispered, placing her hand over his heart. "You're human." Still, he struggled to believe it. Their love was still strong, still true, but now it carried weight. And some feelings, like water seeping through a hull, were difficult to keep out. One quiet evening, Robinson asked her to walk with him along the harbor. The air was cold, but peaceful. Lights shimmered across the water, reflecting like small stars drowned beneath the surface. Robinson held her hand tightly. "Jess," he said softly, "do you ever wonder how the Titanic felt?" She looked at him, puzzled. "What do you mean?" "The ship," he said. "People called it unsinkable, beautiful, strong, but even something that grand could break when the world hit it the wrong way." She squeezed his hand. "Are you calling us the Titanic?" He gave a small, sad smile. "I'm saying, I don't want us to hit an iceberg we don't survive." Her heart tightened. "We won't, not if we steer together." "I'm trying," he whispered. "But some days, the weight inside me feels like water filling a ship." Jessica stopped walking. She turned to him, placed her hands around his face, and spoke with quiet power. "Then let me help you hold the water back." He closed his eyes, and for the first time in months, he let himself cry, deep, shaking tears that broke through the armor he had been carrying. Jessica pulled him into her arms, feeling his pain like cold waves crashing against her. It was the power of an embrace, a silent promise stronger than words. A promise that love, in its purest form, was an act of saving. But healing isn't linear. Robinson's trauma kept resurfacing. He struggled with guilt, depression, shadows that lingered in the corners of his thoughts. Jessica kept supporting him, but the emotional weight slowly carved cracks into her own heart. One day, Robinson told her, "I need therapy, real therapy. I can't rely on you to fix me." She nodded, because she knew he was right. She wanted him to heal with the help of professionals, not at the cost of her own well-being. But as he began therapy, he also began withdrawing from her, not intentionally, but out of fear of burdening her. He spent long hours alone, wrote in a journal, attended sessions, walked quietly through the city, often without telling her where he went. Jessica tried to be understanding, but loneliness crept back into her life. Sometimes, they sat together on the couch but felt like oceans apart. Sometimes, love wasn't enough to bridge the distance trauma created. One night, after months of emotional drifting, Jessica found Robinson sitting on the floor of their living room, back against the wall, knees pulled to his chest. His breathing was uneven, his eyes unfocused. A panic attack. She ran to him immediately. "Robinson, hey, look at me. I'm here." He couldn't respond. His chest was rising too fast. His hands trembled. Jessica sat in front of him, taking his face in her palms. "Breathe with me," she whispered. Slowly, painfully slowly, he matched his breaths with hers. Tears streamed down his face. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this. You're not a burden," she whispered. "You deserve someone whole." She shook her head, tears forming. "I deserve you." He looked at her, shaking, broken, terrified, but in that moment, he saw the truth. Her love had never been weak. It had always been powerful enough to reach him even when he sank deep. He pulled her into the tightest embrace they had shared in months. And in that embrace, for the first time, he let the waves settle. Not fully, not forever, but enough. Months passed. Therapy helped. Jessica's unwavering presence helped. Robinson grew steadier, more grounded. They talked more openly. They laughed again, softly at first, then with genuine warmth. But life has its own tides. One winter morning, Robinson told her he had received a new opportunity, this time in the US, a documentary series about rebuilding communities after natural disasters. Safer, meaningful, beautiful, but it required travel across several states. Jessica felt fear stir inside her. "Will it be like last time?" "No," he said. "I won't go to dangerous regions. I won't be unreachable, I promise." But promises, like ships, can be fragile. 3 months into the project, a powerful storm struck the town where Robinson's crew was filming. Roads flooded, communication towers fell, the production team was evacuated, but Robinson never made it to the evacuation point. Jessica's heart shattered in an instant. History was repeating itself. Her Titanic was sinking again. For 2 days, Jessica heard nothing. 2 days of drowning in her own fear. Then, at dawn on the 3rd day, her phone rang. It was Robinson. "Jess," his voice was weak, but alive. "I'm okay. I'm safe." She cried so hard she could barely form words. "Where are you?" she whispered. "In a rescue shelter. It was bad. Floods came fast. But I kept thinking, I have to get home to you." Her breath trembled. "You're coming back." "Yes," he whispered. "I'm coming back." It was the promise she needed. But fate had its own plans. On the drive back from the shelter, the rescue van carrying Robinson skidded on a collapsing bridge. First responders fought to pull everyone out, but Robinson was thrown from the vehicle into violent water. They eventually found him, unconscious, pulse faint. He was rushed to the hospital. Jessica arrived hours later, hands trembling, heart barely beating. When she saw him, pale and motionless, machines keeping him alive, she felt the world collapse. It was the iceberg, the one they couldn't avoid. Doctors told her his condition was critical. They couldn't promise anything. Jessica held his hand, tears falling silently onto the sheets. "Robinson," she whispered, "you always come back to me. Please, come back again." Hours passed. Then his eyes opened, weak, but aware. "Jess," she leaned close, sobbing softly. "I'm here." He lifted a shaky hand, touching her cheek. "You look like an angel." "Stop," she whispered through tears. "Don't say goodbye." He smiled faintly. "No goodbyes. Just, thank you." "For what?" "For loving me through every storm. For holding me when I couldn't hold myself together. For saving me more times than I deserved." Her voice broke. "I need you. I can't lose you." He whispered, "You'll never lose me. I'm part of you now. Even if." "Don't," she pleaded. He took a fragile breath. "Jess, love is like the Titanic. People think sinking is the end. But what they forget is, even at the bottom of the ocean, it still exists. Still remembered. Still powerful." Tears blurred her vision. "You're my Titanic," she whispered. "And I'll never stop remembering." He gave her one last embrace, weak but filled with everything he had left. And then, like a ship slipping beneath the waves, he left the world quietly. Jessica held him long after the machines went silent. The embrace lingered, the love lingered, the pain lingered. Months passed, then a year, then another. Jessica learned to keep going, not because the pain faded, but because love had given her strength she never knew she possessed. She moved to Boston, started working at a non-profit, helping families affected by natural disasters, honoring Robinson's passion. She read his journals, watched his documentaries, kept his memory alive in every quiet act of kindness. But every April 14th, on the anniversary of the Titanic sinking, and now, the anniversary of losing him, she walked to the harbor. She sat on the same bench. She held the silver ship necklace. She whispered his name, Robinson. Some days, she cried. Other days, she smiled softly. Most days, she simply breathed, steady, grounded, alive. Because love hadn't drowned her. It had taught her to swim. On this particular April morning, the sky was soft gray. The waves whispered against the shore. Jessica held the necklace tightly. "I miss you," she whispered to the wind. A breeze brushed her cheek, gentle, warm, familiar. And for a moment, she felt him beside her. Not as a ghost, not as sorrow, but as love. Silent, powerful, eternal. Jessica rose, walked to the water's edge, and dropped the necklace into the sea. It sank slowly, like a tiny Titanic returning home. She watched it disappear beneath the waves. But for the first time, she didn't feel crushed. She felt peaceful, because some stories don't need to stay above the surface to be remembered. Some love stories become oceans, felt, not seen. Jessica turned away from the water, breathing deeply. She knew she would carry Robinson forever, not as pain, but as strength. Their love had sunk, yes, but it had also transformed. Into resilience, into purpose, into a bittersweet remembrance that shaped her life. And as she walked back into the world, Jessica 7 whispered a final truth. Some ships sink so their stories can rise.